And I want to begin with you, Dr. Sarah Birete. The Protection of the National Sovereignty Bill 2026 is already in Parliament. A notice has been issued for stakeholders to go and present their views. Will you be among those to go to Parliament to submit your views? But also, what is your take on this particular bill?
Well, if I may start with the bill, you know, the title sounds so good, and I think, having read both the draft released on 23rd March and the bill as tabled in Parliament 2 days ago, I am confident that the only good thing in this law is the title, Protection of Sovereignty. When you look at the object of the bill, protection of the bill seeks, or the long title, the bill seeks to, you know, provide for sovereignty of the people of Uganda, designate department responsible for peace and security, register and regulate foreigners and related matters. Whenever there is any situation of lawmaking or legislation, the question that the drafters usually ask is, what is the lacuna? Or what vacuum exists that you are trying to cure? And this bill lists 3 issues as part of the problem that they think they are trying to cure. And these include interference with development and implementation of government policies and programs, foreign aid to civil society for governance, and use of online platforms by foreigners and agents of foreigners. Furthermore, there is inadequate regulation of civil society. The bill says so. In law, if there is a lacuna, for example, civil society, there's a lacuna with the regulation of civil society. We have the NGO Act that has been amended in 2024. We have NGO regulations. We have NGO policy. But also the NGO Act is not implemented in isolation. It's implemented together with other laws, including the Anti-Money Laundering Act and Anti-Terrorism Act in regulating financial flows. Banks that receive funding from abroad are regulated under the Banking Institutions Act and also Bank of Uganda Act, the supervisor of the banking sector. So when you say that there's a lacuna with the regulation of civil society, can you state that lacuna? And then can you go and visit these laws and see and cure that lacuna in these laws through amendment? If you want to regulate and cross civil society, go in the NGO Act and put that. If you want to deregister civil society in Uganda, go to the Constitution, amend it, and say there will be no civil society in Uganda. But hide behind protection of sovereignty that you want to control civil society. Why don't you go to the law managing civil society and amend it and put whatever you want to put? Away from that, there are 2 dangerous definitions that are far broad, restrictive, overreaching, that will cross the social, economic, and political space in Uganda. First is, who is a foreigner? The bill says a foreigner includes a non-Ugandan citizen. That's a given. A Ugandan citizen residing outside Uganda. Even you, Kenneth, if you traveled to Kenya today, tomorrow you will be declared a foreigner, because it does not take how many days or period you have to reside outside the country. So when you cross our border, you will be a foreigner according to this law. Because unless you go and come back, you don't spend the night.
Doesn't it?
There is no time period. Any Ugandan residing outside Uganda. So we are seeking to declare over 1 million Ugandans living in diaspora stateless. We are seeking to declare Ugandan students studying abroad stateless. We are seeking to declare people who go abroad seeking treatment stateless. We are seeking to declare people who engage in transnational trade to start debating whether they are citizens whenever you leave the country and enter. Because the law does not state residing in Uganda to do what, for what period. All those details do not exist. The law just says any Ugandan residing outside Uganda is considered a foreigner. Our constitution in Articles 9 to 15 categorically state who is a Ugandan by citizenship, and the different categories of citizenship and how one can lose citizenship. This is not one of them, that whenever you travel and leave your country, you lose your citizenship. So it's unconstitutional. The law says government, consulate, of course, diplomatic missions, these are foreign entities, that's a given. A corporation, company, NGO, or any legal entity incorporated and incorporated or registered outside Uganda is a foreigner. An international or multinational organization is a foreigner. Person, institution that the minister may deem fit can be declared a foreigner. So even when you don't travel, Kenneth, the minister can decide and say from now on, you are a foreigner. This is what the road says in its interpretation section. When you got who is an agent of a foreigner, an agent of a foreigner means a person who acts as an agent, representative, employee, servant, or any person who acts in any other capacity at the order, request, or under the direction or control of a foreigner, or a person or any of whose activities are directly or indirectly supervised, controlled, financed by a foreigner. We have declared Ugandans working in diaspora foreigners. These people, through remittances, only last year sent up to $2.5 billion back as remittances. This is family support for their parents and grandparents and siblings. This is money for development. This is money for school fees. This is money for medical care coming in from what we normally call Nkubacheyo. Some are called Kadamas. Some are just called diaspora, like in the US and wherever. So we are saying these people are foreigners. And the money they sent back, now the $2.5 billion, is foreign funding. And for a grandmother to receive money from a Kadama working in the UAE, the grandmother has to go and apply to the minister to be licensed as an agent of a foreigner in order to receive money for medical care from their grandchildren working in UAE as a Kadama. What does this mean? That we are likely to have these old judges in the villages being arrested for receiving money when they are unlicensed. Because most of them most likely would not know. Two, we have failed as a country, especially under 40 years of NRM, to provide proper social protection for the vulnerable, elderly, and poor families or low household income families. These families are only affording decent care through their children who suffer in the United Arab Emirates and other countries, working to take care of their parents and siblings. Now we are putting a punishment that if you travel, you are working in Dubai, you are a foreigner. You want to send money to your mother, you need the license of a minister, and you must give accountability. So a grandmother is in the hospital, and our hospitals cannot treat you until a deposit is paid. Media has been reporting about women who die in labor because the nurses refuse to touch them. There is no money. Assuming that the husband of this woman in labor is abroad, then the woman is in labor. The hospital can't treat them. This woman in labor requires a license of a minister to receive money from her husband who is working in Abu Dhabi to be able to be attended to as she gives birth. There is no timeline when the minister should respond to license a foreign agent to receive money from their children or husbands. That's how crazy this law can be. Away from the Ugandans in diaspora who are going to be rendered stateless, you have tourism. I think we received about 1.8 million tourists in the last year, and our tourism had gone up, had started shooting up. Now you are saying that for a tourist in Europe to book a trip with a tour agent here in Uganda, because they book through payment, the agent has to first go and be licensed as a foreign agent. Otherwise, if the tour agent receives money from an intending tourist, she can be arrested for 20 years or be fined That tour agent can be fined 2 billion as a person. If it's a company, it's 4 billion, or they can be arrested for 20 years. Let's go to coffee export business. All our coffee exporters have foreign companies, I think about 90%, including the name that sounds local, Chaguranyi Coffee. It's a British company. This Chaguranyi Coffee has to now register as a foreign agent, be licensed in order to buy coffee. Because this is money from British. So that will also affect our coffee revenues in the country. When you go to the banking sector, all people, Ugandans working in banks, have to be licensed every 2 years as agents of foreigners. Because with the exception of 3 banks, all our banks here are foreign. The 3 banks which are indigenous, Post Bank, Centenary, and Pride, they also use MasterCard and Visa. And they have Western Union outlets, making them foreigners. So all our banking sector is going to be rendered foreigners. The workers there, including a cleaner, have to be licensed as foreign agents. And the staff, if there is any breach of due diligence, or if a grandmother receives money for medical care without the license of a minister, a director in the bank can be arrested for 20 years or be fined. The bank can be fined 4 billion or both. That is how absurd this law is.
All right, Dr. Sarah Birete, I have a feeling that after a law is passed, they normally come up with regulations which guide the implementation of this particular law. Don't you get a feeling that probably some of these issues will be outlined? For instance, if I'm a Ugandan and I'm working abroad, maybe I should not be classified as a foreigner because I'm not residing. I've not taken up permanent residency. I'm not a citizen of the other country. So the regulation probably will create a leeway to say a Ugandan working abroad sending money to a relative, that money is not considered as a transmission of money from an agent. Don't you think the regulations will probably address some of these issues?
Kenneth, this is a government law. It's been introduced by government in parliament. It has passed through stages of cabinet, NRM caucus approval. It's a government law. So the assumption is that this is a law by the Attorney General, who is the chief legal advisor of government. The questions that we must interrogate is, what are his intentions?
What's the mischief, according to you?
I don't see it. That's why I went through the purpose, the purpose of the law. If you want to cross civil society, go in the constitution and cross them. Go in the NGO Act and cross them. But stop crossing the sector, the economic space in Uganda. If the problem of this regime are NGOs, I want to invite the regime to go to the constitution in the democratic principles and directives of state policy, objectives 5 and 6, and they remove civic organizations. Go and delete Article 38 of the Constitution and other related articles, including Article 17, that mandates that citizens must participate in their governance.
All right, let's move on and hear from